Rev up your engines!
Well, they say they're working on a chip shortage and are fixing it. Well, Ford hasn't fixed anything yet. Turns out with the chip shortage now, they're going to have to shut a bunch of their plants in July because they don't have enough chips to build them. And they have Ford trucks lying around places the trucks are built, but they're waiting for the chips. They're idling or reducing production at 8 of their plants here, and they're going to do it until sometime in August, they said. And they also said production of the Ford Ranger and the new Ford Bronco SUV is going to be shut down for a couple of weeks because of unrelated auto parts supplies. Yeah, I mean, old Henry Ford, he must be rolling over in his grave. His whole thing was Ford built everything. They made their own windshield glass. They made everything. Now they farm that stuff out to save money. Yeah, and then look what happens when there's problems. They can't build cars and they lose all kinds of money. This make other people do the stuff put together is bad for two reasons. One, you're dependent on other people. And two, the quality of these people, they want to, of course, pay them as little as possible. That's why they're doing it in the first place instead of making it themselves. So the quality is going to be, and then when they got problems, compensate for the problems that somebody else didn't make the part right in the first place. Bad idea, bad business sense. But, you know, it makes them cheaper, and that's all they care about these days. Why do you think they're building this stuff in Mexico? Quality? No, it's just cheaper to make them there. And they get these chips from all over the place. They're getting them cheaper. Probably the quality of the chips isn't going to be that hot either. I'd really be afraid of buying any new vehicle today. If, we found some chips over there. We'll try those for a while. No, you want continuity. Like the Japanese, that they've been using people for decades, and then they know that's a good supplier, and they keep it up. Not, what's the cheapest price? Let's buy that now. Not a good idea if you want long-term quality for your customers. B says, my radiator fans are not kicking on, and now it's smoking out the exhaust. Help. Well, here's the problem. You should have fixed the fans first. The fans not coming on per se have nothing to do with smoke coming out of the exhaust. You should have fixed the fans, because when the fans don't work, your engine will overheat. Once the engine overheats, it blows the head gasket. At a minimum, it could warp the heads, do all kinds of things. Then, once the head gasket's blown, water gets inside your combustion chamber and it smokes. That's steam coming out of the back. Since you didn't fix the cooling fans, that has end up damaging your engine. Anytime you see that temperature gauge going up, fix it sooner than later. Don't wait. You can get all kinds of damage done. If the cooling fans don't work, now you don't need cooling fans when you're going 65 miles an hour on the highway because you got 65 mile an hour wind. But as soon as you slow down and you're idling or going slow, you need those fans to cool the radiator. If they don't work, your engine gets too hot, blows your engine. Now you got a serious engine problem because you didn't fix the fans in the first place. And always watch your temperature because a lot of people say, I never look at it. Glance at it once in a while. It's always in the middle. Just make sure. Now, all of a sudden you see it on the top, turn the car off, fix it. Don't ruin your engine because you got a fan that doesn't work, or a radiator that's got a little hole in it, or a radiator clamp that's loose, or a bad radiator cap that won't hold pressure. Fix it first. Do not keep driving a car, because then when you wreck your engine like that, now you're looking at thousands and thousands of dollars in repair money. 2013 says, I did a cylinder leak down test on a salvage motor I bought, and it goes between 65 and 80% pressure at 100 psi. I can hear air hissing from the exhaust. Now, is this because the engine doesn't have oil in the head? Should I expect the valves not to seat as well? No. You can compression test by turning the engine over, a completely dry engine. It only needs lubrication when it's running and there's all that pressure and power going on it. Turning it dry isn't going to hurt anything. You got it coming out your exhaust valves, some of them are shot. They're bare metal on bare metal. There's no lubrication there. It's just bare metal. And if it's leaking now, you got a crappy salvage motor. They screwed you over selling you the thing. Hope you didn't pay much for it because you're going to have to do a valve job on it. And if the valves are that worn, odds are the rest of the engine's in crap shape too. Don't just think, I'll do a valve job and fix it. No. I've had more people do valve jobs on engines, leave the bottom end alone on an old used engine. Then, as soon as they start it up, it starts smoking like mad because the new head seals great. And then that puts more strain on the piston rings and it smokes because it's burning oil because the pressure isn't right there. Either do it completely right or don't do it at all. And you bought that salvaged, if I were you, I'd take it back to the people, demand my money back. Navasad says, I got a rattling noise coming from the top of my Honda CR-V 4-cylinder engine. What could it be? He's got a video, and I can hear it rattling. It's valve clatter. Understand, Hondas aren't like other cars. They're still old design when it comes to their valve adjustment. Toyotas use stainless steel shims, and theoretically they need adjusting, but I've seen them with 300,000 miles. They've never been touched. They're still within adjustment when I check them because the stainless steel shim goes on the cam. It's hard to wear that. Hondas, on the other hand, use cams, and they have rocker arms and followers and little adjusters. And it's just a bolt with 2 nuts. They have to be adjusted at least maybe every 70, 80,000 miles. Yours needs adjusting. You got to adjust them on Hondas every once in a while because they do 2 things. If they get really off, they can rattle. This one is making a rattling noise when it's idling. I can hear it. But even worse and more insidious is sometimes because of the way things wear, they actually get too tight. And that can burn the heads out. The valves can burn the heads, smash them up and break the valves, crack the heads. If you got a Honda, you want to adjust the valves at least every 80, 90,000 miles. It's a relatively intricate thing. Anybody can do it if they want. You can watch my videos on how to do it. It's just feeler gauges and take the valve cover gaskets and measure them and just watch the videos and maybe get a little book that shows how to do it. It's totally doable. It's just time consuming. But they do need to be done in Hondas because over time, they will get out of adjustment. Then they'll make noise like that, or they'll be hard to start up when they're hot because they're too tight, or they're too loose. They clatter like mad, and of course the noise is metal clattering, which means it's going to wear the engine out faster. So get those valves adjusted. And anybody with a Honda should check them every once in a while. John 2006 says my turn signal doesn't work. It rained heavy and I drove my car. The turn signal didn't work. No click, no arrow, no nothing. Then I tried the emergency light. I pressed it and held it, and then my turn signal worked. What could it be? Realize your entire turn signal assembly, the whole system, does also go through your 4-way flasher. Since you pushed that button down and held it, and then it worked, replace the flasher button, your emergency flasher button. When they wear out, that's exactly what happens. Ages ago, that used to be a big problem with BMWs. Theirs were so poorly made. The plastic was crap, like all plastic in BMWs. And the stupid emergency flasher plastic would break, and they turned themselves on. And people would come to a dead car, and if they brought it to me, I'd put up the battery cables on them and jump it, and I'd see the 4-way flashers around, and I'd realize, oh, that stupid thing broke, and I had to buy the 4-way flasher emergency button assembly. Change that first, and pray it's not something like wiring in a computer system that got wet that's going to be really hard to pinpoint. But in your case, it's probably the button itself is worn out. They will. And if it rained a lot, then the humidity got in it, made it act out even worse, so it didn't work, and then you held it in and it started to work. Holding it in forces the power. Maybe it got hot enough to burn off any water that got on it or something. But change that first. And also look around to see if you've had any water intrusion. Maybe it's an older car and you see that your turn signal bulbs are wet. You know you got a crack, you need a new lens and replace the bulb because water intruded is really going to go. And if you take a bulb out and you see it's all corroded, you got to clean it all out with electrical spray cleaner, then put a little dielectric grease in so it won't corrode anymore. Tallboy 100 says, Scotty, recently half of my heat shield fell off my car. The other half's still on a catalytic converter. Would it be wise to get a replacement or not? You know, the only thing it is, it's a heat shield to keep the heat of your catalytic converter from starting fires. They had to put them on originally because the early ones didn't. People would go to national parks and stuff and they start forest fires from making tinder. The leaves and needles would start on fire. So it's to stop that. It's only to keep the heat of the catalytic converter from starting fires under your car. And if you drive on roads all the time, there shouldn't be anything that would start a fire on your road anyway. Ace Kick says, I got a 2014 Infiniti QX60. I just replaced the CVT transmission. I know your feelings on them. What can I do to prolong the life of the transmission? Okay. Well, you got an Infiniti QX60. That's a big engine. It's a fast car, right? Don't drive like an absolute maniac. Now, if you want to go 90 miles an hour, go 90 miles an hour. You'll get a ticket, but it won't hurt anything if you go 0 to 90 gradually. If you're always peeling out and going as fast as you possibly can, that will wear the transmission out further. And change the fluid in it every 30,000 miles. Learn how to do it yourself. It's not that hard to do, but do that. Because if you don't, man, those things are bad enough when you keep the fluid clean. Infiniti, those are Jatco transmissions, and they're garbage. As you found, you already had to replace a stupid thing. It turns out in Germany, Professor Klein, he has what he calls the Klein Vision Air Car. And it recently completed a 35-minute test flight between cities in Slovakia. This isn't one of these flying drone electric nonsense things. It's an actual car plane. You can see it looks more like a car than these ones that look like drones. It is powered by a 1.6-liter BMW gasoline engine, too. This isn't one of these fancy electric, blah, blah, blah. No, gasoline engine. And it can actually fly. You need a lot of power to fly a plane. And, of course, gasoline is going to give you range where electricity is not. Now, it's a 160 horsepower BMW engine with a fixed propeller. And it changes from aircraft to road vehicle in less than 3 minutes. And I got to say, check it out. It's pretty cool looking. They flew it around, then they turned it into a car and drove it to the city center by their president, Stephen Klein, who invented the thing in the first place. It It is a pretty cool looking device, I have to say. This is an actual one they made and they're flying. They got a prototype called Air Car Prototype 2, and it's going to have a 360 horsepower engine, almost twice as many. And it should be able to cruise at 186 miles an hour and have a range of 621 miles. That would be a real flying car, of course. It's not going to be cheap, I guarantee you that. It's got a BMW engine and it's made in Germany. But this is some fantasy. It's actually been flown. They're testing it out. Now, they didn't mention anything about what it might cost. I'm sure it's going to be one of these, $1 million jobs for the ultra rich. We're not all going to be driving around in flying cars. Anytime soon, the Jetsons are still being pushed into the future. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.